Hello everyone, so welcome back to my channel. For those who don't know me, my name is Aditya, and in this particular video we'll be working upon one of the workout Wednesday challenge, and we'll be exploring one new feature in Tableau that is like I think 2023 version it is launched, like that is dynamic access title in Tableau, which is making Tableau more powerful. And what we can do here is like we can use parameters now in our calculation to show the dynamic axis. So what we're going to build is like we are going to build like small multiple chart, like that is also known as Trellis chart. So this particular week what we're going to do is we are going to work upon like the rugby data set, and we'll be like using two KPIs, like two dynamic measures, and we'll be like creating a scatter plot, like multiple scatter plots for all the teams name and like the team players, and like we'll be comparing two KPIs according to the user selection. So I hope you guys are excited by now. So now let us move on to my screen and see how to build one. So now let us move on to Tableau and connect to our rugby dataset file. So I'll be giving you the description for the workout Wednesday challenge, so you can download the data from this particular website. Like they have provided data from here, and they have also written down like we have to use only 2023 data like for creating our this visualizations. Okay, so what we're going to do is like in the rugby dataset we can see like these are the different sheets that are available. So we'll be using only 2023 data, so I'll be just dragging 2023 data to the right hand side. So once that is done, it will take some time. So you can see in the particular dataset we have our game ID, and according to game ID, like these are the different players and player numbers, like the jersey number they have some numbers written on the back, right? And like the team name they mention, and these are the different KPIs, like how many tries he has taken, how many tackles he has done, how many meters they have run, and errors 40, all the KPIs like goals they have done. So all the KPIs are there, right? So what I'm going to do here is and how and like whether they have lost the match or win the match. So this is the data set we have got. Okay, so what I'm going to do first is like I am just going to create a pivot for all the KPIs. So what I'm going to do is just select the first KPI tries, just scroll down to the right hand side and till penalties we have, and just click on this drop down and click on pivot. Perfect. And now like on the left hand side if you scroll down we have some more KPIs that we can add in our pivot. So uh, 1 second, score is not up, kicks, home score, away score, round number, half time score, home, drop goals. Okay, so this from drop goals to red cards we can add into pivot. Okay, so now what we can do is we can just rename this calculation as measures. Okay, so these are the measures that we are measuring, right? And these are the values, so I'll just rename this column as values. Perfect. So now what I want to do is just go to sheet 1 and I'll just drag the measure to the right hand side. So we can see we have 21 KPIs. Okay, original visualization I can see like kicks in general play also they have taken as measure. So let me just go back to my data source, and if I scroll to the left hand side, so this is also one of the measures, so I'll just add this to pivot. Okay, perfect. So now it is perfect, right? So now what I'm going to do is now we are going to build. So now what we need to do is now we are going to build a scatter plot, right? So what we want is like we have two axes, like one is x-axis and one is y-axis, right? In x-axis there is one measure and in y-axis there is another measure, right? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create two parameter first. Okay, so the first will be like measure 1. Okay, and this will be our integer, oh sorry, this will be our string, and this will be taking from a list and will be taking from a measure column that we have pivoted, and the first KPI is like meters. Okay, so I'm just going to select meters here. Perfect. And the second one is tackles. Okay, click on OK and duplicate this parameter and edit the parameter, and now like this will be a measure 2, right? Measure 2, and this will be our I forgot again this was our tackles. Okay, tackles, and click on OK. Perfect. So now our two parameters are ready, right? So in order for the parameters to work we need to wire it up with some calculation, right? So if you're following me from a longer period of time, and if you don't know about like how we can use parameters in calculated field, so I have already made the video in my cards, so you can just go and check it out. I will give the link in the description box, and if you're new to this channel, then do subscribe it, as it helped me a lot. So now moving ahead, like what we're going to do is we are going to build two calculation. Okay, so one is for the x-axis, okay, and one is for the y-axis. So in x-axis, what I want to show is I want to show measure one, right? So what I will give is I will give some condition. So like if my parameter, like if my parameter equal to my measure, okay, then I want the values. But if my values are not equal to 0, then only I want my values, otherwise I don't want it. Because what will happen is, like if I don't give this condition, so it will not show any values in the scatter plot, because we are going to divide it by players in detail, right? So that's why I've given this second condition. So now click on apply, click on OK. Perfect. And now what we're going to do is we are going to duplicate this calculation, and same thing we are going to do for the y-axis. And in the y-axis I want my measure 2, right? So I'll just replace this measure 1 with the measure 2. So if my measure 2 player has the measure the person has selected, end user is equal to the measure is equal to the measure in the field that is present, then I want the values, otherwise not. Click on apply, click on OK. Perfect. Now remove this measure field and drag the columns to x-axis and drag the y-axis to row. And now what I want is I want to divide by team name, so drag the team name to row shelf. Perfect. And now what I want is I want to divide by team players, right? So what I will do is I will just drag the players into detail. So players, let me just go to back to my data source and see where the players detail is mentioned. So name is the player detail. Okay, so what I'm going to do is go back to sheet 1 and drag the name into detail shelf. Drag the name into detail shelf. Perfect. So now we are getting the detail, right? So now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to change the mark type to circle and decrease some size. And in the given visualization we have green color, something like that. So I'll just go to my color, more colors, select this one, neural green, cancel, select this neural green. Perfect. And then increase the size little bit. Okay, perfect. And we'll just remove this indicator. Okay, and now you can see like there are the different sizes. In our particular visualization it is of same size, but in the given visualization there are different sizes. And you can see in the tooltip like they mention number of games, so according to number of games I guess like they are dividing the sizes. So what we can do is we can just create one calculated field, that is our number of games. So number of games will be like the count of game ID, like how many game ID they have played, right? Count distinct, right? Click on apply, click on OK, and drag this game to the size shelf. Drag this game field to the size shelf. Perfect. And just decrease the size a little bit. Perfect. And just decrease the opacity to 70%, so it will overlap. We can see the visual side, we can see the visual, right? So now it's looking perfect. So now what we can do is we can just modify the tooltip. So what they're given is player name, then team name, then meta tag. Okay, perfect. And preview, yeah, now it's looking perfect. Click on apply, and what I'm going to do is just I'm going to change this color. Like for the team name I want to highlight with the same color as the marks. Perfect. So now Tableau has launched new feature, that is dynamic axis title. So how to use that? So what we can do is we can just right click on our x-axis and we can click on edit axis. So now you can see there's a drop down here which we can give custom title. So in this particular case we can give our parameter that we have created. So in the x-axis we are using measure 1, right? So just click to measure 1 and on the y-axis I'm using measure 2. So just click on edit axis and select the measure 2. Perfect. So now if I change any measure, like suppose I change attacking kicks, so now you can see it is automatically changing, right? So how cool is that? So let me just get it back to meters. Perfect. So now our scatter plot is ready, right? So now what we want is we want to create this trellis chart. Okay, so there's a little trick in creating a trellis chart. So in this particular case, I think in the workout Wednesday challenge, like they're using static calculation to build this visualization, but we'll be using dynamic calculation. So the in order, if the user want to see, like in this particular case the user can see only 3 columns, but if in our case, like if user want to see like 4 columns and he want to see like 4 KPIs, like 4 visualization, like this Hull FC team should show on the right hand side. So you should have the flexibility to do that. So that we are going to do now. So first we are going to focus upon building the logic, and then we'll be moving toward building the plot. Okay, so let us create one more sheet and just create as a building logic. I'm just adding building logic. Okay, so now what we're going to do is we are going to divide according to the like this team name, right? So what we're going to do is just drag the team name to the column shelf, and what we can do is the first thing we need to do is we'll be creating a index, like to name all the particular teams, right? So what I'm going to do is create one calculated field, name it as index, and using simple index function. So what it will do is it will create a sequence of number from 1 to how many rows, how many columns you have. So just tag this index to a text field. Perfect. So you can see 1 to 12 they have launched, right? So now what we want is we want rows and columns, right? So what we can do is first just follow this video, just focus upon this video and the calculations that I am making, so it will be easy for you to understand. So what I'm trying to do here is, like, I'm creating one parameter, so that will take number of columns the user want to see in the trellis chart, and this I want as an integer field, and as if now I'm just writing 3 because we have 3 columns, right? So click on OK and show the parameter. Perfect. So in order for the parameter to work, we need to wire it up, right? So we'll be creating 2 calculations. So one is for the rows and one is for the columns. So first we'll be doing for the columns. So for the columns, what we can do is, like, we can add an index function. Okay, and modulus of the parameter columns. So now what it will do is, like, it will give the remainder, right? So if, like, as if now my number of columns is 3, so my index is 1, like 1% 3 will give some value, 2% 3 will give some value, 3% 3 will give 0, because like 3 divided by 3 the remainder is 0, right? So just click on apply. So if I drag this column to the text field, just click on OK and drag the column field to the text field. Perfect. So you can see in the 3 it is showing 0, right? What I told you. So now what we need to do is we need to figure something out, like whenever our calculation is 0, whenever our remainder is 0, I want the same number to be shown here. So that will be like 1, 2, 3 column, right? So what we can do here is we can just give simple if condition, like if my this condition equal to 0. Okay, then what I want is, then I want my parameter to show it up, else I want this calculation to take place. And so now what will happen is, whenever like it will give zeros, so it will change it to the particular column name. Okay, click on apply. Okay, perfect. So now you can see 1 2 3 1 2 3 1 2 3 1 2 3 is giving. So these 3 will be taken into first 3 column, then these 3 in another 3 column, and this thing in another 3 column, like same 3 column. But now we need to specify the number, like in the rows we want to settle this particular case, like these 3 item will be in a 3, like first column this will be there, second column this will be there, third column this will be there, this team will be there, but like we don't know like which rows like this team should be placed, right? Like in a visualization, like this castle fold player should be placed in row first, then hull FC is row 2, leopards in row 3, right? So we need to do one calculation for rows. Okay, so now what we can do is, so just create one calculated field and give it as rows, and what we're going to do is we're going to use the index function and divide by the column field. Okay, click on apply and double click on that, and double click on that also, control Z. So now this is our rows calculation, right? So what I'm going to do here is, like, I don't want this, I want this to be in row 0, this 3 in row 1, this 3 in row 2, this 3 in row 3, right? So what I can do is I can just subtract 1 from everything. So click on apply, just keep bracket in correct way, click on apply, perfect. So now what I want is, if I give integer value in all this calculation, so what it will do is it will round this to 0, this to 1, these to 2, and these to 3, right? So that what we needed, right? So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to write integer bracket and just enter bracket, perfect. Click on apply, perfect, right? So now you can see these are my row 0, and these are my row 1, these are my row 2, and these are my row 3. So we have successfully done our calculation. So I hope you are clear with that, and if you find some confusion in this particular part, so I encourage you to watch again all this calculation and see how the logic we are building, so it will be easy for you to understand in the second time. Okay, so now what we can do is, now I'm going to build the visualization. So in order to build a Trellis chart, what we need to do is we are just going to drag our x-axis to the column shelf and y-axis to our row shelf, and what we want is we want to divide by the different teams, right? So let's drag the teams to the detail shelf, team to the detail shelf, and the name to the detail shelf, team name, sorry, to the detail shelf. Drag the team out, team name and name according to we need to divide, right? Now we want to divide by rows and column, right? So we'll be dragging the row, edit this calculation. So this is a calculation that we want to use, this is not a calculation that's related, rows to row shelf and columns to column shelf, and we want both to be discrete. So just change our pill to discrete pill. Now what we want to do is, now we want to change our table calculation scope. So we want to specify the scope of the calculation to be against team name and name, and dpace we want it to be by team name, right? Click on apply. Now same, go back to the row shelf and edit the table calculation, specific dimension, team name and name, and specific want to team name, perfect, and click on OK, perfect, and just remove this and just hide this indicator, perfect. So now our Trellis chart is almost ready, right? So I hope you are able to understand by now, and just click on the size field and just drag the number of games to the size shelf, and just decrease the size little bit and go to color, give it as a green color and decrease the opacity, perfect, and just give it as a standard view. So now if I show my parameter, so if I want suppose 4 columns, so I get 4 columns, so you can see now it is dividing, right, according to the user flexibility. So that's why we created this dynamic, but we are not going to use in our final dashboard. This is just for learning purpose, I have created this. So now what we want is, now we want to use a dynamic axis setup feature that we use in a scatter plot. So just right click on the x-axis, click on edit axis and give the custom title as measure 1, y-axis, edit axis, give the title as measure 2, perfect, and just show the header and show the header, perfect. So now our last thing is, like, we want to show the team name right in the top left. So how to do that? So there's a simple trick in doing that. So we are going to create one calculation, so that will be like our titles. Suppose I'm giving titles Okay, so what I'm going to do here is like I'm just using the window max function. So window max, like sum of y-axis I'm giving. Okay, and just remove this extra y. Perfect, and click on apply, click on OK. And what we can do is like for adding a title, there's some little trick. Like the title calculation that we have done, we are just going to drag the title calculation to the right hand side of sum of y-axis and just edit this table calculation, and we want it to do it across table across, and we want to do it across like the name field, and just drag across this. And we're going to change the title to Gantt bar. Just remove this aggregated games, and the team name we want as a label, so just drag this team name to the label shelf, Control Z, drag this to the label shelf. Perfect. And now what I want to do is I want to show minimum maximum, and go to label and just select the field as sum of x-axis. So going in x-axis it will show two field. So now what I want to show is I want to show my minimum field. So just click on that and decrease our opacity for Gantt bar to 0, and now we are getting to closer to a result, and just give it as a dual axis. Perfect. Now what we can do is we can just change the color. We can give a y-axis our Miller stone, I think this green color, and for title we can give just some color because it will not show obviously. Click on OK. Perfect. So now our things are going correct, right? And just so they mentioned dashboard size to be, so they mentioned dashboard size to be 800 into 800. So we'll do same thing, like we'll just do 800 by 800. And what we're going to do is we're just going to give generate dashboard size 800 by 800. And now what we're going to do is we are going to drag our vertical container, and in the layout I'm just giving outer padding as 20, inner padding as 20, sorry, inner padding as 20. So whenever I drag any blank object, so we can see that. So just drag the blank object. Perfect. So you can see the inner padding is done now, so that's why blank is coming in between. So now what I can do is I can just add my trellis chart to the visualization, and just remove this, remove this, remove this, remove this blank space, hide the title. Now we are getting closer to a result, so just add title dashboard, show title. What we can do is we can just add one more blank in the top, and we can add a text field to the top. And in the text what we can do is we can just write the same thing they mentioned. Wow, we can do it for this thing. We want it to be Georgia, and we can give the size as 12, and we can, perfect, click on apply and click on this cut icon. And now what we can do is we can just add a two parameters, like that is measure 1, and the second parameter that is measure 2. Yeah, so what I want is I want this to be a floating, and this to be also floating, individual floating. So just select the floating one and cut this container and hide the title. Just drag this title bar to this thing. Perfect. Same thing to with this, just hide the title. Perfect. Perfect, right? So now if I go to my presentation mode, so like if I change my KPI, like if I change by meters and the another KPI as goals, so you can see the visualizations are changing, right? And the same thing we can go with clean break, or if I want to see like missed goals versus goals, or missed goal versus meters, or missed goal versus penalties versus error, so we can see that, right? So now the only thing is we want to change our tooltip, same as scatterplot. So I can just go to my scatterplot because we've already built a tooltip. So I can just copy this and go to my trellis chart and go to my all field, go to tooltip, control V. Perfect. So now if I go to my dashboard and just name it as WOW 2023, week 13, perfect. And one more thing we can do is we can just add one more text in the down, and we can just write like @ challenge by, we can just add something more detailed like this challenge was by Lorna Brown, workout Wednesday, and recreated by Aditya. Okay, and what I can do here is I can just select all, just give Georgia as a font and give it to the 12. For Lorna Brown I can give one color as green, and for me I can give one color as blue. Just click on OK and just give the center line, perfect. And now what I can do is I can just save. So now we can see all the things are done. So what we can do is we can just check our goals to penalties, or we can check some meters with penalties, and we can see like our axes are changing accordingly. So we have used the dynamic axis title in this particular video, and we have also learned about Trellis chart, how to build one, and we've also understand the logic in building the Trellis chart, that is important. So thank you for watching. So do like, share and subscribe, and I will be happy to interact with you. So do give the comments if you love this video. So see you soon in the next video. Bye bye.